So the Board Leader Academy, here we are, week 4, intentional practices. Of course, we're looking at effective meetings, which is your decision-making forum. You're looking at policy and planning, which are critical to your role. And we're looking today at transparency, communication, annual reports, but really everything that you do should be intentional. Although we've labeled these as intentional practices, they're probably the more important intentional practices rather than all of the intentional practices. So today, transparency, communication, and reports. Now, again, your 4 major unique core responsibilities: establishing strategic direction on behalf of your community, creating, developing that constructive partnership with your chief officer, ensuring sustainable resources to achieve your mission, and monitor and evaluate programs and services, and also your finances. So the question is, how are you accountable for this? And how do you report out? So we're going to discuss briefly today fostering inquiry and transparency. Who needs to know what information about you? You as a board member, you as a board, about your organization, about your operations. Essentially, for most of us, we're doing the public's business. Now, you can define your public. It could be a membership, could be a municipality, it could be a group of users, but essentially we're doing the public's business, and we're doing it with public money. So it should be conducted in public, except where it's not legally appropriate. And all pertinent information should be available to the public. We have nothing to hide. And quite to the contrary, we should want to raise our profile in the community. So let's start with your profile, your board profile. The public profile of the board and the directors or trustees. This reflects your reputation and your capacity. Who are you? Can I find a photo of you, alone and together as a board? Is there a short biographical statement so I know why you're representing me at that board table? What do you bring to the table? How do I contact you without going through your chief officer or executive director? You're not going to get a whole lot of messages, so don't be concerned about that. Your community should be able to contact you directly. And you should have an organizational email while you're on the board. You want to be known in the organization to the staff, and you want to be known externally in the community. First of all, it makes recruitment of board members easier when the board is known and people who know who is on that board or can at least investigate it through your website. How are you fostering public interest and engagement? Your board meetings, for example, are there notices of your board meetings? Are the times appropriate, or are they held when most people could not attend? Are you welcoming to guests, visitors? Is there a space for the gallery, a few chairs, some agendas and supporting documents? Is there a time on the agenda for presentations or delegations? Or are you frightened of them and don't want to hear from your community? And of course, you should have policies around this, time limitations, whether the board engages or simply listens, how it gets back to people, and so on. Do you engage people through advisory committees? You may have advisory committees around specific issues, such as technology, engaging community leaders in this area, or for specific market groups, for example, an advisory committee on services to teens. How do you select these people? Are they users who favor you, or are they more broadly based? Are they named by other groups as representatives? Is an advisory committee chaired by a board member or by the staff? Is the purpose to advise the board or to advise the staff? You need to engage, but you need to know why and how first. Have a process in terms of reference laid out as for any committee. What about planning sessions? How do you involve stakeholder groups? Is it a one-off or is it ongoing? Do you as a board member act as an ambassador, consulting, listening, informing? Do you each have a short elevator speech, 30 seconds, to explain how wonderful your organization is and its impact in the community? Are you committed to getting out more, to be transparent and evident in the community, participating? Do you at least have a business card as a board member? Do you have specific liaisons that you as a board member have been assigned, for example, to a civic group, perhaps to another area of your operation, to specific funders, to stakeholders? Everyone around your table should be responsible, but everyone means no one is responsible. So you need to have a plan with specific liaisons and responsibilities and reporting. Otherwise, you're a faceless board, and that has huge implications for your reputation and profile. It leads to a lack of trust, a lack of support, and a lack of engagement. You know, the public needs access, not only to meetings, but also to your agendas, to your minutes. These should be easily accessible and current on the web. Also access to your mission, your vision, your values, your strategic plan, your annual reports, your finances, any results you're getting. This is not difficult, but it communicates transparency with public funds. And everyone gets the same information. Do you have an open exchange with your staff? Do they feel free to discuss issues with you? Not to bypass the CEO, and indeed you should have policy around this, but to make sure that there's some transparency and some relationship between the board and the staff. Do you post your policies? Is there a whistleblower policy to protect your staff? Are statements about conflict of interest posted? Annual disclosure statements signed by board members and senior staff around potential conflict of interest? What are your policies about competitive bids, requests for proposals? Perhaps you have an open competition over a certain amount of money, or a case can be made for a single provider. What's your policy on this? There should be no personal financial gain on organizational time. This is something that is too often abused. And what about external communications? Who's responsible for speaking on behalf of the board? Who communicates with the media? What is the role of the full board, of the chair, of the CEO? Who handles social media? How do you distinguish between the organization and the board? What policies are in place? Well, let's look at the example of annual reports. This is one important communication tool, and there are legal requirements around an annual report, according to attorneys general. You need to lay out how you contribute to the public good, how you communicate to the community and government and funders. You want to outline your progress, developments, benchmarks around programs and finances, and the impact that you have. This is a useful communication tool for transparency and for advocacies. So some of the principles that have been outlined is, first of all, purpose. Explain the public purpose you serve. What is your mission, vision, and values? What makes you different? Is this explained in an introductory letter or introduction by the chair? How do you link your goals to results through your strategic plan, your annual work plan? You might want to focus on a few critical aspects of performance, perhaps around some strategic directions you set out the previous year. You want to link your resources, your strategies, and results to show how funding makes a difference and the impact that it has in your community. You want to provide some comparative information too around programs and services and use, and also around finances, and disclose the basis for any key reporting judgments. So the financial information is actually going to set out in a specified form and format, and the auditor's report will likely be included as well. And there's going to be fair interpretation of credible information. Now, what's important here is that your annual report can be used with different groups, from the Chamber of Commerce to primary funders and donors to government. But you can also take components and put them into separate brochures, if you will, or handouts that you can use with other groups or leave them in your office or reception area. There is a handout on annual reports that I think you will find useful to you as a checklist as well. So transparency means complying with government regulations, being open, engaged with donors, stakeholders, the public, and an active exchange between the board and the staff. Not a CEO end run, but engagement with the staff. You want a whistleblower policy to protect the staff. You want people to feel connected to the organization, and you want to feel connected to your community. So cultivate relationships with donors and stakeholders. You have responsibilities around communication, around liaison, around ambassadorship, around ensuring sustainable resources, and it should be planned and deliberate. You want to earn your community's ongoing trust and support. And the easiest way to start is providing information in an open, relevant, transparent way. Again, there are a number of handouts in this area this week. There's the workbook for additional information and reflection. Make sure and post any questions or suggestions in the Facebook group, Governance is Leadership, and feel free to contact me. You've got my email, ken@betterboardsbettercommunities.com. You've got my telephone and text contact information, 778-689-5938. And next up, sustainability and success. Thanks.